I want to combine two books, The Beginning of Infinity, David Deutsch, and specifically the concept of the evolution of culture, and talk about No Rules Rules, the book I'm reading right now and discussing, which is the book Reed Hastings, CEO and founder of Netflix, wrote about the culture of Netflix. I think it's a beautiful combination of epistemological philosophy by David Deutsch and actual practical knowledge by a person that has created a very unique culture in a company and created a lot of value. So this is very, very relevant to us fund managers and also relevant for epistemologists and philosophers like David Deutsch. So I think it's a beautiful combination of deep philosophical knowledge and practical knowledge combined into a conclusion I hope that I can put forward in the end that explains what the metrics are that we fund manager should be looking at when we look at value creating companies. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's December 26, 2020. This is Krim Delko. Today is a Saturday. There's no update. In his book, The Beginning of Infinity, David Deutsch talks about the evolution of culture. He talks about memes. Memes are ideas that cause behavior within people, also behavior within memes. So because of ideas can cause behavior, they can also cause ideas to proliferate and change and so forth. So memes are, let's keep it simple, they're concepts, ideas that invoke change within people. In No Rules Rules, Reed Hastings talks about the culture of Netflix, and in particular, he talks about the feedback culture of Netflix. The beginning of the book is about how Netflix has managed to build up a culture, and a culture is a sort of applied meme for a company in specifically. So it's kind of like a meme, but let's call it an applied meme, which is specifically there to proliferate the way things are done within a company. So the question of what next, that is in a nutshell a culture within a Netflix or within a company. And Reed Hastings, in one of his book discussions, has mentioned that he considers culture is what gets you promoted and fired. So he's a little bit more specific, and I like this specificity of Hastings. He's a CEO, he's a money-making CEO, so he doesn't have the luxury to be way too general. He has to be very specific in what he's talking about, and I think this is a beautiful definition of culture. What gets you promoted or fired. This is what culture is. So now let's connect this to Deutsch's concept of memes. And Deutsch talks about the evolution of culture and a progressive culture, a culture with progress, a culture that is getting better, a culture that makes the future better than the past. That is, let's call that a progressive culture. And a regressive culture is a culture that either is static or gets worse and extinct. And Deutsch talks about the memes, and the memes that proliferate. The progressive culture are those that are exposed to criticism and proliferate criticism. So rational criticism is, on the one hand, the thing which produces the necessary memes for a progressive culture and also allows those memes to proliferate. So rational criticism is the fundamental concept that brings them up and keeps them surviving. Because those memes, the culture, the progressive memes, for example, the acceptance of a better paper than somebody else's paper within a certain scientific subject, the acceptance without violence, without corruption, this type of behavior, this type of culture that we call the scientific method, that is, in the one hand, it is a meme that proliferates because it is going to be criticized against other possible ways to do scientific literature. For example, we could say, well, how about we stop this criticism? How about we just decide whoever is the richest gets to say what is truth in science? And then we will criticize this and we will realize that, no, this is not good because the one meme that is the one where we actually criticize and we get the better and replace the worse with the better. That is better. So it wins, and the other one, the richest know the truth type of meme, loses. So the concept of criticism, the competition of ideas, the competition of memes, if you will, that in itself allows for the better memes to survive. And then also the actual process itself brings them up, because we have this competition, we constantly look for new ideas and we try to criticize the existing ideas. So this whole concept within David Deutsch's concept of evolution of culture is critical for a progressive culture. And if we look at what Reed Hastings has done at Netflix, it's exactly the same thing. He's created a culture of feedback. What is feedback? Feedback is, it's not necessarily a competition of ideas, but if you look at it more specifically, it is the idea to continuously replace existing behaviors, methods with better methods. That is the ultimate goal of the feedback culture of Netflix, which is replace existing culture, existing situations, behaviors, mode of behaviors, replace them with better ones. So there is a beautiful connection between the epistemology of David Deutsch and his idea of progress and the culture of Netflix. And of course, Hastings implicitly assumes that will also lead to progress. Now, what is progress? Progress in the concept of David Deutsch is we leave a better world for our kids than we inherited. It is a culture of problem solving. It is a culture of getting to better places, subduing nature to the point where we can live in that nature in coexistence with the nature, to the point where we have choice. So if you really boil down what it actually means, it is create more choice. And this is what wealth creation is according to our definition. Wealth creation is creating more resources. Resources allow choice. In common lingo, wealth creation always is considered making money. Well, of course it's making money, because money is part of that power of choice. But it's not everything. It's time. And if you look at some of the more popular philosophers like Naval on Twitter, he would say things like, if you work on your own time, that's when you're really free and wealthy. I think time is a critical important. What's the point if you have money in the bank if you're not free to do what you want to do? Health, being able to help others at your will, being able to choose when to help and not to help, choice, freedom, the freedom of choice, all these things are critical parts of wealth, and they come with problem solving. So this is, in a nutshell, how David Deutsch looks at progress. Now let's look at Netflix. What is progress at Netflix? The mission statement of Netflix reads the following: we promise our customers stellar service, our suppliers a valuable partner, our investors the prospects of sustained profitable growth, and our employees the allure of huge impact. So the mission statement is, in a way, a little bit, I would say it's very practical and down to earth. It doesn't have that allure of decarbonizing energy like Tesla. It is in the realm of Tesla's actual North Star, which is more convenience, lower price, and cash flow. We're looking at a similar situation here, which is more convenience, better quality, and cash flow. It's not lower price. That's one of the problems I have with Netflix, and I think that warrants a whole other episode. That Netflix is in fact not a disruptor. Netflix is not a disruptor. They are not driving down price. They are increasing quality, offering choice, enabling a better life for people, investors, customers, everybody, but they're not lowering the price. In fact, they're increasing prices. And that's because they're not a disruptor. They're not coming to us with a new technology that is fundamentally lowering the price. We have been able to consume media for decades over cable and satellite. So it's not the kind of breakthrough technology that, for example, Amazon is bringing to bear with much better selection and things like that, because they're using the internet. Now there is some of that with Netflix, but there is also the problem of competition. Competition is actually catching up dramatically within that space because everybody else can do the same thing. So I don't want to go too deep into the Netflix conversation now as far as their business is concerned. I just feel their mission statement is a little bit weak. It is not straightforward to read from this, to draw from this mission statement and develop a culture like I think with Tesla, it's pretty straightforward. You want more convenience and lower price. So a lot of things that you do within Tesla has to go towards those two North Stars, and you have to create cash flow. But nevertheless, I think Hastings has created a culture of criticism, a culture of replacing bad ideas with better ideas, bad behavior with better behavior. So he has incorporated a meme which allows for progress. So he has put forward a meme which also punishes the anti-rational memes, the memes that David Deutsch talks about, that organizations, countries can impose that actually limit progress. And Deutsch talks about that most of the history of human beings, for hundreds of thousands of years, we have been exposed, our species has been exposed to anti-rational memes. The societies, the organizations, the villagers, all those things have always been subject to anti-rational memes. This is actually the norm. We are the exception. The Enlightenment and what came afterwards and our current times are the exception, because we proliferate rational memes, rational criticisms. We allow memes to compete with other memes and the better memes to survive. We allow the process of competition to thrive. And this is what makes our society so progressive. This is what makes Netflix as a company, according to Reed Hastings, competitive. Because there is a culture of rational criticism, of improving on what is the status quo. There is also a culture of not allowing memes that are either proliferating status or even decline to proliferate. That is the key. I think within the book, No Rules, Rules, the beginning is about the feedback culture. Hastings talks about the 4 A's. I think affirmative, actionable, 2 other A's. What he's trying to say is, of course, if you have a culture of criticism within a company, for example, you have to solve the jerk problem. The jerk problem is, well, you can constantly criticize people in order to put yourself above others. You can criticize people in order to put people down and things like that. So you, of course, have to make sure that you can have a progressive culture and society and still criticize and not destroy what you have. So this is a very fine line. For example, in the financial markets, we have the shorts. The shorts, in many cases, are shorting for the sake of shorting. There are people that would say things like, if you think you're smarter than me, you're stupid. There are other things that say, if you think you're understanding something, that means you're not understanding it. So those are bad memes. Those are bad memes, anti-rational memes that impose themselves, that infiltrate themselves into an organization or a culture, and then they make it very difficult for everybody else to criticize, to progress. So how do we safeguard that? How do we make sure that that kind of behavior doesn't happen? How do we make sure that the jerks in a company don't come out? How does Tesla make sure that constant, adaptive, rapid innovation happens, that better ideas replace worse ideas, that engineering solutions are better, that we have memes that proliferate ideas that work, which is really what engineering is all about, which is bring solutions that work to the front line and get solutions that don't work as well a little bit further back, or get them out of the system. And make that so we don't have jerks. We don't have those genius jerks who constantly deliver condescending comments, who make other people slave to their approval, to their positiveness, and who are very stingy about sharing ideas and things like that. So how do you make sure? That is the key. That is, I think that's what Reed Hastings considers his job. That's what I think Elon Musk's job is, first and foremost. Make sure that that culture survives, that that culture proliferates. Deutsch is not very clear how that kind of culture can be created. He almost talks a little bit about that in the sense it just happened. And maybe if you have a few beers with him, it might come out and he might talk about the history. Maybe that's just not his realm, because it's kind of a history question. How did this whole thing happen? How did our culture, how did the Enlightenment happen? And how did this meme of rational criticism and competition of ideas, how did that even come to bear? And we as capitalists, as free market believers, really believe in that. That's what I think is the real belief that is so positive, which is we can have ideas replacing other ideas, companies replacing other companies. We can have managers replacing other managers, or ideas replacing other ideas within a company without having to go through status and ranks and things like that. Is the underlying culture that makes wealth creation possible, the underlying force that allows for the kind of wealth creation that we at Orange Capital Partners have put ourselves at our mission, at the core of our mission, which is to generate wealth by investing in fundamentally new concepts and engineering practices with large impact. Thank you.